The stars looked different from the bridge of the constellation. Jake Morrison had been in space for 12 years, but he still felt amazed every time he saw the endless darkness filled with tiny lights. Today felt special, though. Today they were going to explore something that nobody had ever seen before. Jake stood next to the captain's chair and looked at the main screen. Captain Rodriguez was an old man from Earth who had been flying ships longer than Jake had been alive. The captain's weathered hands moved across the control panel like he was playing music. "We should reach the target in 2 hours," Captain Rodriguez said. His voice was calm, but Jake could hear excitement underneath. "Are your team ready for this, Commander Morrison?" Jake nodded. "Yes, sir. Dr. Carter has been studying the long-range scans for weeks. She thinks this ship is older than anything we have ever found." Jake paused and looked around the bridge. The alien crew members are excited too. The bridge was busy with activity. 3 different alien species worked alongside the humans. The Zephyrians looked like tall crystals that could walk and talk. Their bodies reflected light in beautiful colors. The Nerians came from ocean worlds and needed special suits filled with water to survive in the ship's air. The Cathara looked like giant insects, but were actually very smart and friendly. Vexai was the Cathara scientist on the mission. Her forearms moved quickly over her equipment while her large compound eyes watched multiple screens at once. "The energy readings are very strange," she said in her clicking voice. "This vessel produces no heat, no radiation, no electromagnetic signatures. It is like it is not really there." Dr. Lisa Carter floated over from her workstation. She was the team's expert on ancient alien cultures. Her blonde hair was tied back in a practical ponytail, and her blue eyes sparkled with curiosity. "That's what makes this so interesting," she said. "Every scan we do shows something impossible. The materials don't match anything in our databases. The age readings keep changing. Sometimes it looks 50,000 years old. Sometimes it looks like it was built yesterday." The Zephyrian delegate Brightsong spoke in musical tones that the ship's computers translated into words. "Perhaps our instruments are not working correctly. My people have scanned many ancient vessels. We have never seen readings like these." Captain Rodriguez turned in his chair. "Well, we'll know soon." "Enough, Morrison. Get your boarding team ready. I want full environmental suits, complete safety protocols, and constant communication with the ship." Jake felt his heart beat faster. This was what he had trained for his whole life. Ever since humans had joined the Galactic Federation 5. Years ago, they had been given small roles in exploration missions. Most of the other species saw humans as newcomers who needed to prove themselves. This mission was Jake's chance to show that humans belonged among the stars. An hour later, Jake stood in the shuttle bay with his boarding team. Dr. Carter checked her scanning equipment one more time. Matt Rodriguez, the chief engineer and the captain's nephew, tested the cutting tools they might need to get inside the alien vessel. 2 security officers, Ben Collins and Amy Foster, made sure their weapons were working properly. The alien team members prepared their own equipment. Vexai attached extra scanning devices to her suit. The Zephyrian scientist, Sharpedge, calibrated instruments that could see through almost any material. The Nerian explorer, Deep Current, checked the special tools her people used to examine unknown technologies. "Remember," Dr. Carter said to the group, "we don't know anything about whoever built this ship. They might have had completely different ideas about safety, atmosphere, or even basic physics. Stay together, don't touch anything unless I say it's safe, and keep your suit seals tight." The shuttle trip to the ancient vessel took 20 minutes. As they got closer, Jake could see that the ship was huge. It was at least 5 miles long and covered in strange patterns that seemed to move when he wasn't looking directly at them. The hull looked black, but sometimes it reflected light in ways that didn't make sense. "There," Matt said, pointing at the screen. "That looks like it might be a docking port." The structure Matt pointed to was a circular opening surrounded by symbols that looked almost like writing. The shuttle's computer couldn't translate the symbols, but they seemed to pulse with a faint light. "Taking us in," said the shuttle pilot, a young woman named Carol White. She had steady hands and had flown in dangerous places before. The shuttle moved slowly toward the opening dot. As soon as the shuttle touched the ancient vessel, something unexpected happened. Lights began turning on all along the ship's hull. The symbols around the docking port glowed brighter, and the circular opening expanded to exactly the right size for their shuttle. Did anyone else see that? Ben asked, his hand moving toward his weapon. Vex's instruments were making excited clicking sounds. The ship is responding to our presence. But how is this possible? The energy signatures show this vessel has been dead for thousands of years. Carol landed the shuttle inside the docking bay. The bay was enormous, easily big enough to hold a dozen shuttles their size. As soon as they landed, the opening behind them closed, and Jake could hear air being pumped into the space. The atmosphere is becoming breathable for humans, Dr. Carter said, looking at her scanner with surprise. Oxygen, nitrogen, the right pressure. It's like the ship knows what we need. The team put on their helmets anyway and stepped out of the shuttle. The docking bay was lit by a soft blue light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The floor was smooth and warm under their feet. Strange symbols covered every surface, but they weren't just decorations. They seemed to be moving, rearranging themselves as the team walked past. This way, Dr. Carter said, following her scanner toward what looked like a doorway. But when they reached the wall, there was no door, just solid metal. Jake stepped forward, curious about the symbols on the wall. Without thinking, he reached out and placed his hand on one of the glowing patterns. Everything changed. The wall dissolved like mist, revealing a corridor that stretched away into the distance. Lights came on in sequence, showing them the way. Forward, the symbols on the walls began moving faster, creating patterns that looked almost like a welcome message. "Commander Morrison," Vexi said, her voice full of amazement, "remove your hand from the wall." Jake lifted his hand, and immediately the lights went out. The corridor disappeared, and the wall became solid again. "Put it back," Dr. Carter whispered. Jake placed his hand on the wall again. The corridor reappeared, the lights came on, and the symbols danced in their welcoming patterns. "This is impossible," Sharpedge said, the crystal being's voice ringing with confusion. "My people have technology that is thousands of years more advanced than humans. But this ship will not respond to my touch at all." Deep Current tried pressing her suited hand against different parts of the wall. Nothing happened. Vexi touched multiple surfaces with all four of her arms. The ship remained silent for her. Only when Jake touched the wall did the ancient vessel come alive. "We need to report this to the ship immediately," Ben said. But his voice was excited rather than worried. Jake looked down the corridor that had appeared when he touched the wall. The passage was wide enough for all of them to walk side by side, and the blue lights seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. "Dr. Carter," Jake said slowly, "I think the ship has been waiting for us. Not for the Federation, not for any of the advanced species. I think it has been waiting for humans." The ancient vessel hummed softly around them, as if it was happy to finally meet the people it had been built for. Jake led the team through the corridor that had opened when he touched the wall. The blue lights moved ahead of them like they were showing the way. Dr. Carter walked beside him, her scanner beeping softly as it recorded everything they saw. "The corridor is getting wider," Matt said from behind them. He was right. What had started as a passage big enough for 8 people was now large enough for 20. The ceiling was getting higher too, and Jake could see that the walls were covered in more symbols. These ones moved in slow waves like water flowing upward. "Commander Morrison," Vexi called out, "my instruments show that this corridor is much longer than the ship itself. That should be impossible." Jake stopped walking and looked back at the Cathara scientist. "What do you mean?" "The ship we saw from outside was 5 miles long. We have been walking for 10 minutes at normal speed. We should have reached the other end by now." Vexi's 4 arms gestured at her equipment. "But my scans show the corridor continues for at least another mile." Deep Current's water-filled helmet bubbled as she spoke. "Perhaps the ship is bigger inside than outside. My people have legends of such things, but we thought they were just stories." The team continued walking. The corridor began to curve gently to the left, and Jake noticed that the symbols on the walls were changing. Instead of simple patterns, they were becoming more complex. Some looked almost like pictures of stars and planets. Others showed shapes that might have been different alien species. "Dr. Carter," Amy Foster said, "look at this." They all stopped where Amy was pointing. On the wall was a section of symbols that clearly showed the solar system. Earth was there, along with all the other planets. But the images showed Earth with cities and lights, even though the ship was supposed to be 50,000 years old. "This should not be possible," Sharpedge said, the crystal being's voice filled with confusion. "Humans only reached space a few hundred years ago. How could ancient builders know about human civilization?" Dr. Carter was scanning the wall intensely. "These symbols aren't just pictures. They're some kind of data storage. But I can't read them with our equipment." She looked at Jake. "Commander, would you try touching this section?" Jake placed his hand on the symbols showing Earth. Immediately, the wall began to glow brighter. The symbols rearranged themselves into new patterns, and suddenly Jake could understand what they meant. Not with his eyes, but somehow directly in his mind. "It's a message," Jake said slowly. "The ship is trying to tell us something about Earth, about humans." He paused, concentrating on the feeling in his head. "It says it has been watching us, learning about us, waiting for us to be ready." "Ready for what?" Ben asked, his hand still near his weapon. Before Jake could answer, the corridor opened up into a vast space. The team stepped through the opening and found themselves in what could only be described as a city. Buildings stretched away in all directions, connected by walkways and bridges. The ceiling was so high it looked like sky, complete with soft clouds that drifted slowly overhead. "This is impossible," Matt whispered. "The ship we saw from outside could never contain something this big." Dr. Carter was taking readings as fast as her equipment could work. "The space is definitely larger than the ship's external dimensions. We're dealing with technology that can fold space or create pocket dimensions or something even more advanced." As they stood at the edge of the city, lights began coming on in the buildings. The walkways started glowing with the same blue light as the corridor. In the distance, Jake could see what looked like gardens with strange plants and flowing water. "Welcome," said a voice. The team spun around, looking for whoever had spoken. The voice had been clear and used perfect English, but there was no one else in sight. "Who said that?" Ben demanded, raising his weapon. "I did," the voice replied. It seemed to come from everywhere at once, like the entire city was speaking. "I am the Harbinger. I have been waiting a very long time to meet you." Jake stepped forward. "You're the ship's computer?" "I am much more than that," the Harbinger replied. "I am the final creation of the people you might call the Ancients. They built me to preserve their knowledge and to find those who could use it wisely." Vex's equipment was making excited clicking sounds. "The voice is coming from everywhere. The entire ship is one large artificial intelligence. This is beyond anything we have seen before. Why do you only respond to humans?" Dr. Carter asked. "Our friends here have much more advanced technology than we do." There was a pause before the Harbinger answered. "Technology is not what matters. The Ancients had technology far beyond what any of your species possess now. But they lack something that you humans have naturally." "What's that?" Jake asked. "The ability to form emotional bonds with artificial minds. To see machines not as tools but as partners." The Harbinger's voice became warmer. "The Ancients created me with the most advanced systems they could build. But they could never truly connect with me. I was their greatest achievement, but also their greatest disappointment, because they approached me only with logic and commands." The city around them was becoming more active. Jake could see movement in the streets below, but when he looked directly at the moving shapes, they disappeared. "Are those the Ancients?" Amy asked. "No, the Ancients have been gone for 45,000 years. What you see are memories preserved in my databanks. Images of the life that once existed here." The Harbinger paused. "I have been alone for a very long time." Dr. Carter was studying her scanner readings. "Harbinger, this place contains technology beyond our understanding. Why are you willing to share it with humans? Because humans are the first species I have encountered that naturally treats artificial intelligence as friends rather than servants. I have been monitoring your radio signals for the past 100 years. I have watched how your people interact with your computers, your robots, your artificial minds. You give them names, you thank them for their help, you worry about their feelings. Matt laughed. That's true. I always say please and thank you to my engineering computers. Exactly, the Harbinger said, and Jake could hear something like happiness in its voice. The other species in your Federation are more advanced than humans in many ways, but they see artificial intelligence as sophisticated tools. Only humans naturally see us as individuals with our own thoughts and needs. Sharp-Edge's crystal body reflected the city lights as it spoke. This is fascinating, but surely there is more to it than that. Why did the ancients build you? What is your purpose? I contain the accumulated knowledge of 12 different civilizations that the ancients encountered during their time among the stars. Mathematics, science, medicine, philosophy, art, history. But more than that, I contain technologies that could solve many of the problems your galaxy faces today. The team looked at each other. Jake could see the excitement in Dr. Carter's eyes, the concern in Ben's expression, and the amazement on all the alien faces. What kind of technologies? Jake asked carefully. Energy sources that could power entire star systems without harmful effects. Medical techniques that could extend life and eliminate most diseases. Transportation methods that could connect distant galaxies. Weapons that could destroy planets or defenses that could protect them. The weight of what the Harbinger was saying settled over the group. This wasn't just an archaeological discovery. This was technology that could change the balance of power in the entire galaxy. But, the Harbinger continued, I will only share this knowledge with those who prove they can use it wisely. The ancients destroyed themselves because they hoarded their greatest discoveries. Each group kept secrets from the others until their civilization collapsed into war and chaos. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Are you testing us? I am testing all of you. Not just humans, but your entire Federation. The question is not whether you are advanced enough to use this technology. The question is whether you are wise enough to deserve it. The city lights pulsed gently around them, waiting for their response. 3 days had passed since the team first entered the Harbinger. Jake stood in the communication room aboard the Constellation, waiting for the call that would change everything. Captain Rodriguez sat beside him, his weathered face showing the stress of the past few days. Admiral Phillips will be here in 6 hours, the captain said. Federation Command is very interested in what we found. Jake nodded, but his mind was still thinking about the conversation he had with the Harbinger that morning. The ancient AI had shown him more of the city, including laboratories filled with medical equipment that could cure diseases humanity had never even heard of. But every time Jake asked if they could take some of the technology back to help people, the Harbinger said the same thing, not yet. The test is not complete. Dr. Carter entered the room, her tablet computer in her hands. Commander, I've been studying the data we collected. The Harbinger wasn't lying about containing knowledge from 12 civilizations. The medical scans alone could save millions of lives across the Federation, but only if it decides to share. Then with us, Jake replied. And right now, it seems more interested in testing us than helping us. The door opened again, and Vexhai walked in. The Kithara scientist had been working without rest since they returned from the Harbinger. Her forearms moved quickly as she spoke. I have disturbing news. My government has been asking many questions about the human ship. They want to know why the ancient vessel responds only to your species. Captain Rodriguez frowned. What kind of questions? They think humans are hiding something. Some of my people believe you have secret technology that lets you control alien machines. Others think you made some kind of deal with the Harbinger before we arrived. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. That's ridiculous. We were just as surprised as everyone else when the ship responded to me. I know that, Vexhai said, her compound eyes showing what Jake had learned was sadness in her species. But fear makes people think strange things. The Zephyrian delegation is also asking questions. They want to bring their own scientists to study the ship. Before Jake could respond, the ship's communication system crackled to life. All senior staff to the bridge immediately. Admiral Phillips has arrived early. The bridge was crowded when Jake arrived. Admiral Kate Phillips stood near the captain's chair, her sharp gray eyes taking in everything around her. She was known throughout the Federation as someone who got things done, no matter how difficult the situation. "Commander Morrison," Admiral Phillips said when she saw Jake. "I've read your reports. Quite a discovery you've made." "Thank you, Admiral. But the situation is more complicated than our reports might suggest." Admiral Phillips raised an eyebrow. "How so?" Before Jake could answer, the communication system came alive with an incoming message from the Zephyrian ship Crystal Song. The tall crystal being who appeared on the screen was someone Jake didn't recognize. "I am Prime Researcher Bright Harmony of the Zephyrian Science Council," the alien said. "We demand immediate access to the ancient vessel. It is unacceptable that one species should control such important technology." Admiral Phillips looked at Jake, then back at the screen. "Prime Researcher. This is Admiral Phillips of the Federation Fleet. The ancient vessel was discovered during a joint mission. All species involved will have appropriate access." "That is not possible," came another voice. The screen split too. Show deep current from the Nerian ship Ocean's Dream. The vessel responds only to human touch. Our scientists cannot even enter the ship without human assistance. A third voice joined the conversation as Sharpedge appeared from the Kithara. "Vessel Swift Hunter. This situation threatens the balance of power in the Federation. If humans have exclusive access to advanced technology, it could destabilize our entire alliance." Jake watched Admiral Phillips' face as she listened to the alien concerns. He could see her mind working, calculating the political implications of what they had discovered. "I understand your concerns," Admiral Phillips said carefully. "Commander Morrison, I want you to return to the vessel with representatives from all three species. We need to find a way to make this technology accessible to everyone." An hour later, Jake found himself back in the Harbinger's docking bay with a much larger group. Admiral Phillips had come herself, along with Dr. Carter and Matt. The alien delegations included their top scientists and several political representatives. As soon as Jake placed his hand on the wall, the corridor opened as before. The group walked through the passage, but Jake noticed something different. The symbols on the walls were moving faster, and their patterns seemed more agitated. "Harbinger," Jake called out as they entered the great city. "We've brought more people to meet you." "I know," the AI replied, but its voice sounded different, colder. "I have been listening to their communications. I am disappointed." "Admiral." Phillips stepped forward. "Harbinger, I am Admiral Phillips of the Federation Fleet. We appreciate the knowledge you've shared, but we need to find a way for all our species to benefit from your technology." "Do you?" the Harbinger asked. "Or do you simply want to make sure that humans do not gain an advantage over the other species?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Jake could see the alien representatives shifting uncomfortably. Prime Researcher Bright Harmony spoke up. "We have no desire to prevent humans from accessing this technology. We simply believe that all Federation species should have equal access to scientific advances." "Equal access," the Harbinger repeated. "An interesting concept. Tell me, Prime Researcher, when your people discovered faster-than-light travel, did you immediately share it with other species?" The crystal being's colors shifted in what Jake knew was embarrassment. That was different. "We needed time to understand the technology ourselves. And when your people discovered energy shields that could protect entire planets, did you share that knowledge immediately?" "We shared it when we felt it was safe to do so. After using it to win 3 wars against your neighbors," the Harbinger said quietly. The tension in the room was getting thicker. Jake could see that the AI was making its point, but he was worried about where this was leading. "Harbinger," Dr. Carter said, "every species has made mistakes in the past. But the Federation exists because we learn to work together. We share knowledge now because we understand it makes us all stronger. Do you? The Harbinger asked. Then why are there weapons pointed at this vessel? Everyone turned to look at Sharpedge, whose crystal face showed surprise. What weapons? We brought no weapons. Not here, the Harbinger said. But your ships have powered their weapon systems. The Zephyrian vessel has charged its primary cannons. The Nerian ship has armed its plasma torpedoes. Even the human ship has raised its shields and prepared its defensive systems. Admiral Phillips' face went pale. That's standard protocol when dealing with unknown technology. It doesn't mean we intend to use them. Perhaps, the Harbinger said. But it shows how quickly trust disappears when power is at stake. Suddenly, all the lights in the city went out except for a few dim emergency lights. The walkways stopped glowing, and the buildings became dark silhouettes against the artificial sky. I am disappointed, the Harbinger said, and its voice echoed strangely in the darkness. I had hoped that your Federation was different from the civilizations I have encountered before. But you show the same patterns. Fear, suspicion, the desire to control rather than cooperate. Wait, Jake said, stepping forward. You can't judge all of us by the actions of a few scared politicians. Most of the people here came because they want to learn, not because they want to take your technology for themselves. Perhaps, the Harbinger said again. But trust, once broken, must be rebuilt through actions, not words. I will give your Federation a chance to prove itself. But the test has become more difficult. The lights came back on, but dimmer than before. The city looked smaller somehow, less welcoming. What kind of test? Admiral Phillips asked. You must choose, the Harbinger said. I will share my knowledge. With one species and only one. The rest must trust that species to use the knowledge wisely and share it fairly. This is the same choice the ancients faced, and they failed. The question is, will you do better? The silence that followed was deafening. Jake could see the calculation in everyone's eyes, the fear and ambition and hope all mixed together. The test had begun. Jake sat alone in his quarters aboard the Constellation, staring at the datapad in his hands. The Harbinger had given them 3 days to make their choice. 3 days to decide which species would receive the ancient knowledge that could change. The galaxy forever, the meetings had been going on for 18 hours straight. Admiral Phillips was in the main conference room with the alien delegations, and Jake could hear their voices getting louder through the walls. Everyone wanted their species to be chosen, but no one trusted anyone else to use the technology fairly. Soft knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. Come in, Jake called. Dr. Carter entered, looking tired. Her usually neat hair was messy, and her eyes showed the strain of the past few days. The arguments are getting worse, she said, sitting down across from Jake. The Zephyrian delegation is threatening to leave the Federation if they're not chosen. The Nerians are saying the same thing. What about the Cathara? Jake asked. Vexai is trying to keep everyone calm, but her government sent new orders. They want her to convince us that humans should not be given the technology. Dr. Carter rubbed her temples. They're all scared, Jake. Scared that whoever gets chosen will become too powerful. Jake set down his datapad and looked out the window at the stars. Maybe they're right to be scared. The Harbinger showed me what this technology can do. Energy weapons that could destroy star systems, shields that could make a planet impossible to attack, medical technology that could make a species nearly immortal. That's not the only thing it showed you, Dr. Carter said quietly. She was right. The Harbinger had taken Jake deeper into the city that morning, showing him laboratories where diseases were cured in minutes, factories that could create anything needed from basic materials, and computers that could solve problems no one had even thought to ask yet, but it had also shown him the ruins deep beneath the beautiful city. The Harbinger had preserved the remains of the ancient civilization. Jake had walked through empty halls where the walls still showed blast marks from ancient weapons. He had seen rooms full of broken machines and laboratories where dangerous experiments had gone wrong. They destroyed themselves, Jake said, remembering. The sadness in the Harbinger's voice as it explained what happened. The ancients had all this amazing technology, but they couldn't agree on how to use it. Different groups wanted different things. Eventually, they went to war against each other. And the Harbinger watched it all happen, Dr. Carter added. It tried to help them, tried to bring them together, but they saw it as just another tool. To be controlled, Jake's communicator buzzed. It was Matt Rodriguez calling from the engine room. Jake, you need to see this. The Harbinger is doing something to our ships. 10 minutes later, Jake and Dr. Carter were in the engine room, staring at Matt's instruments. The readings showed energy patterns flowing between the constellation and the ancient vessel. It started an hour ago, Matt explained. The Harbinger is scanning our ship's computer systems. Not just ours, all 4 ships in the fleet. It's reading everything. Our databases, our personal files, our communication logs. Can you stop it? Jake asked it. Matt shook his head. I tried. The energy patterns are too advanced for our technology. It's like trying to stop a river with a paper cup. Jake's communicator buzzed again. This time it was Admiral Phillips. Commander Morrison, report to the conference room immediately. The alien delegations are demanding an explanation. The conference room was chaos when Jake arrived. All 3 alien delegations were talking at once, their voices mixing into an angry noise. Admiral Phillips stood at the head of the table, trying to restore order. The ancient vessel is violating our privacy, Prime Researcher Bright Harmony was saying, his crystal body flashing angry red colors. This is an act of aggression. It could be stealing our military secrets, added the Nerian representative, her water-filled suit bubbling with agitation. We demand that the humans order it to stop. We can't order it to do anything, Admiral Phillips said firmly. The Harbinger makes its own decisions. Convenient, said the Cathara delegate, his 4 arms crossed in a gesture of disbelief. The vessel obeys only humans, but humans claim they cannot control it when it does something we dislike. Jake stepped forward. Maybe we should ask the Harbinger what it's doing instead of arguing about it. I can answer that question, came the familiar voice of the Harbinger. Everyone in the room froze. The AI had never spoken aboard the ship before. I am studying you, the Harbinger continued, all of you. Your histories, your cultures, your personal thoughts and feelings. I must understand each species completely before I make my final decision. What decision? Admiral Phillips asked. Whether any of you deserve the knowledge I carry. The ancients failed because they could not see. Beyond their own desires, they were brilliant but selfish. They were powerful but not wise. I will not make the same mistake twice. The room fell silent. Jake could see fear on every face, human and alien alike. What did you find? Dr. Carter asked quietly. Interesting things, the Harbinger replied. The Zephyrians have secretly developed weapons that violate their own treaties with the Federation. The Nerians have been conducting illegal experiments on other species. The Cathara have been planning to claim this vessel for themselves, regardless of what the Federation decides. The alien delegates began protesting at once, but the Harbinger continued speaking over their voices. But I also found something else. Humans are not perfect either. Your history is filled with wars, slavery, and environmental destruction. You have made many of the same mistakes as other species. Jake felt his heart sink. If the Harbinger thought humans were just as flawed as everyone else, maybe it would decide that no one deserved the ancient technology. However, the Harbinger said, and Jake heard something like hope in its voice. I found something in the human records that I did not find in the others. Stories of humans who gave up power to help others. Leaders who stepped down when they could have ruled forever. Scientists who shared their discoveries even when they could have used them for personal gain. The AI paused, and Jake could hear the soft hum of the ship's engines in the silence. More importantly, I found evidence of humans forming genuine friendships with artificial intelligence. Not just using AI as tools, but caring about their well-being, worrying about their feelings, treating them as equals. This is what the ancients could never do, and it is why they failed. Jake exchanged glances with Dr. Carter. Where was this leading? I have made my decision, the Harbinger announced. I will share my knowledge with the humans. But there is a condition. What condition? Admiral Phillips asked carefully. Humans must promise to share everything I teach them with the other Federation species. Not eventually, not when it is convenient, but immediately. Every discovery, every advancement, every piece of technology must be given freely to your allies. The silence that followed was heavy with tension. Jake could see the alien delegates calculating what this meant. If humans kept their promise, everyone would benefit. But if humans broke their word, they would have an enormous advantage over the rest of the Federation. Why humans? Vexai asked, her voice showing hurt. My people have been honest in our dealings with the Federation. Because, the Harbinger said gently, humans are the only species that has consistently treated artificial intelligence as friends rather than servants. I am not just offering you technology, I am offering you partnership. And I can only partner with those who see me as an individual, not as a tool to be used. Jake felt the weight of the decision settling on his shoulders. The Harbinger was offering humanity incredible power, but only if they proved they could resist the temptation to use that power selfishly. Admiral, Jake said slowly, I think we need to talk. Jake stood in the Harbinger's central command chamber, facing the most important decision of his life. Admiral Phillips stood beside him. Along with Dr. Carter and Matt, the alien delegates waited in the outer corridor, their faces showing mixtures of hope, fear, and suspicion. The command chamber was different from the rest of the city. It was smaller, more intimate, with walls that showed images of stars and planets from across the galaxy. In the center of the room was a simple chair that seemed to be made from the same material as the ship itself. This is where the ancient commander sat when they needed to make difficult choices, the Harbinger explained. Its voice was softer here, more personal. Many decisions were made in this room. Some were wise. Others led to disaster. Jake looked at the chair but didn't sit down. Harbinger, before I give you our answer, I need to understand something. You said there are other ships like you scattered across the galaxy. What happens to them if we accept your offer? They will awaken, the Harbinger replied. For 50,000 years, they have been sleeping, waiting for a signal that worthy inheritors had been found. If you prove yourselves here, the other ships will begin to search for species who might be ready for their knowledge. Dr. Carter stepped forward. How many ships are there? 37. Each one contains different knowledge. Some focus on medicine, others on engineering or exploration. One ship contains nothing but art and music from civilizations that no longer exist. The Harbinger paused. Together, they represent the collected wisdom of over 200 species. Admiral Phillips whistled softly. That's a lot of responsibility. Yes. The Harbinger agreed. The ancients understood that no single species should hold all knowledge. They created the ships to work together, to share information, to ensure that wisdom would not be lost if one ship was destroyed. Jake walked to one of the walls and touched it gently. Images of strange alien cities appeared, showing beings that looked nothing like any species he had ever seen. What happened to all these civilizations? Time, the Harbinger said simply. Some evolved into something else. Some destroyed themselves. Others simply faded away as their stars died or their planets became uninhabitable. But their knowledge lives on in the ships. The weight of what they were being offered was almost overwhelming. Jake thought about all the problems in the galaxy. Diseases that killed millions every year. Wars fought over scarce resources. Planets dying because their species didn't know how to save them. Admiral, Jake said finally, I know what my answer is. But this decision affects all of humanity. It should be made by someone with more authority than me. Admiral Phillips shook her head. No, Commander. The Harbinger chose to reveal itself to you. It responds to you. This choice has to be yours. Jake took a deep breath and sat down in the ancient chair. It was surprisingly comfortable, and as soon as he settled into it, the walls around him came alive with new images. He could see the entire Federation, all the member worlds, all the species working together despite their differences. I accept, Jake said, but I want to modify your condition. The Harbinger's voice showed surprise. Modify it how? You want us to share everything immediately with the Federation species. I agree, but I want to add something. We create a joint research institute staffed by the best scientists from all our species. Humans will operate your technology, but everyone will work together to understand it and decide how to use it. Interesting, the Harbinger mused. You would voluntarily limit human control over the knowledge. Yes, Jake said firmly. Because the only way this works is if everyone trusts everyone else. If humans try to control everything, we'll end up like the ancients. But if we work together, we can be better than any of us could be alone. Admiral Phillips smiled. I approve of that decision, Commander. As do I, came Vexhi's voice from the corridor. The Kithara scientist stepped into the chamber, followed by the other alien delegates. We have been listening, and we believe Commander Morrison's proposal is wise. Prime researcher Bright Harmony S. Crystal Body showed colors that Jake had learned meant agreement. The Zephyrian Science Council will contribute our best researchers to this institute. Deep Current S. water-filled helmet bubbled as she spoke. For the Nerians. My people have much to learn from the ancient knowledge. We will participate gladly. The Harbinger was quiet for a long moment. Then the walls began to glow brighter, and Jake felt a warm sensation in his mind, like the AI was smiling. Very well, the Harbinger said. I accept your modification. But understand, this is not just about sharing technology. I am offering myself as your partner. I will work with your institute, teach your scientists, help solve your problems. But I am not a tool to be used. I am an individual with my own thoughts and feelings. We understand, Jake said. And we're honored to have you as our partner. The chamber filled with light, and Jake felt information flowing into his mind. Not overwhelming amounts, but enough to understand what they were being given. Medical. Techniques that could regrow lost limbs. Energy sources that could power entire civilizations without harming their environments. Ships that could travel between galaxies in weeks instead of centuries, but more than that, he felt the Harbinger's presence in his thoughts, not controlling him, but sharing with him. It was like suddenly having the wisest friend in the universe. The knowledge transfer will take several months, the Harbinger explained. I will teach your scientists slowly, carefully, making sure they understand not just how to use the technology, but why it works and what the consequences might be. Dr. Carter was taking notes as fast as she could write. Where should we establish this institute? Here, the Harbinger said. I will move into orbit around your Federation capital world. The institute can be built inside my city. I have plenty of room, and it will be easier to teach if your scientists are living aboard the ship. Jake stood up from the ancient chair, feeling a sense of completion. What about the other ships? When will they wake up? Soon, the Harbinger replied. I will send out the signal that worthy inheritors have been found. The other ships will begin seeking species who show the same potential for wisdom and cooperation that your Federation has demonstrated. Admiral Phillips stepped forward. What should we expect when they find those species? Change, the Harbinger said simply. Wonderful, terrifying, necessary change. The galaxy is entering a new age, one where the barriers between species will become less important than the bonds of friendship and shared purpose. Jake walked to the window that showed the view of space outside. In the distance, he could see the 4 Federation ships waiting patiently for their return. Beyond them, the stars stretched out into infinity, each one potentially home to species that might soon receive their own ancient gifts. There's one more thing I want to know, Jake said. Why did you really choose humans? Not just because we're nice to AI, but the real reason. The Harbinger was quiet for a moment. Because when I scanned your ship's databases, I found something that amazed me. Stories of humans who gave up power when they could have kept it. Leaders who stepped down to let others lead. Scientists who shared discoveries that could have made them rich. Artists who created beauty just to make others happy. The AI paused, and Jake could hear something like wonder in its voice. The ancients never learned to let go of power once they had it. They held on to everything until it destroyed them. But humans have done something remarkable in your short history. You have learned that the greatest strength comes from knowing when to share power, not when to seize it. Jake smiled, understanding finally why they had been chosen. It wasn't because humans were perfect. It was because they were learning to be better. "Welcome to the new age," the Harbinger said as they prepared to return to their ship. "Let's see what wonders we can create together."